local businessman, motivational speaker, and author, Steve Edwards resides here in Clemson, South Carolina. He co-owns Edwards Group, a company with diverse commercial real estate holdings and media outlets across the nation. For more than 2 decades, Steve has been an active member in civic affairs at the local and state level. In 2005, Governor Mark Sanford appointed Steve to the Financial Review Task Force as well as the State Aeronautics Commission. Steve has served locally on the boards of the Seneca National Bank, the South Carolina Press Association, Seneca Sertoma, the YMCA, and both the Seneca and Clemson Chambers of Commerce. A professional speaker and author, Steve is publishing his first book and specializes in promoting leadership and teaching audiences how to lead amazing lives of their own. Ladies and gentlemen, please put your hands together for Steve Edwards.
Good evening, everybody. What an exciting night we've got tonight. Can you believe Glenn Beck, Clemson, South Carolina? You know, I was talking to Glenn earlier tonight, and one thing I didn't realize is he does not do this kind of thing very often. He's got only 3 shows left this year to do on something like this. I think that's an incredible testament to the university and Littlejohn Colosseum. So if you would, I'd like you to thank Marty Kern, GM of Littlejohn University, and their staff. Let's give them a hand. Thank you. My job tonight is to obviously introduce one of the biggest men in America. But before I do that, I'd like to tell you a story about one of the smallest. It's a story about America that starts in Venezuela. It's a story about a young man named Ramon. Now, as you all know, Venezuela, country run by Hugo Chavez, socialistic. There you go, there you go. Extreme wealth on one hand, extreme poverty on the other. There is no middle ground. Unfortunately, the young man I'm going to tell you about tonight comes from the poverty side of that game. Ramon, 9 years old, he'll be 10 tomorrow, 3.5 feet tall, 46 pounds. Great kid, great kid. Those of you that are parents out there know that's a little rough numbers, that doesn't really jive. Most almost 10-year-olds, it doesn't really work. For Ramon, it does. Great kid. Let me tell you where Ramon grew up. The reason I know this is my family is hosting Ramon for the last 2 months and will be for the following 2 months after that. And that's how it's a first-hand information. Ramon, let me explain where he's from. He's from a house in Venezuela that's a thatched hut. Dirt floors, no electricity, no running water. His kitchen's on the outside of the house. His mom is dead. His dad is a deaf mute. His grandmother raises him with a lot of love. But she can't read and she can't write. And neither can Ramon. So one day Ramon's over here. My wife gets him a tutor to try to start the process of getting him reading and writing. And the tutor asks him, Ramon, why is it you're not going to school every day? Because you need to. He's like, I can't go to school every day. And she's like, why not? He says, well, I don't want to. Well, I'll give him that. Most 9 or 10-year-olds don't want to go to school here either. But the other answer was, he says, some days we're not allowed to because we have to go hunt for our own food. 3.5 feet tall, 46 pounds, hunting for his own food. Then one day he's here. Take him to our city pool and put him in, and who knows, I didn't know if he was going to go to the bottom or if he was going to swim well. And sure enough, unbelievable, boom, he swims like a fish. A fish. The kid, you've never seen a kid this small swim so fast. And my wife and I are there going, wow, hey, maybe someone taught him how to swim over there. He races his buddies and he's having some kind of good life over there. So again, we have a Spanish interpreter because he only speaks Spanish. We don't. Get a Spanish interpreter to ask him, Ramon, how are you such a good swimmer? And unfortunately, it's an answer of survival. And you can't make this up. He says, when we swim in the ponds of Venezuela and the crocodiles come in, you got to be fast. You can't make that up. Kind of puts in perspective the old city pool with our kids jumping in, doesn't it? Hoping they have the little floaties on and everything's going well. Well, it gets worse. 5 years earlier, Ramon's 4 or 5 years old, top of an apple tree, according to Ramon, picking apples. And he does what most kids do. Falls out of the tree. Unfortunately for Ramon, when he landed with his foot like that, and it shattered his ankle and his lower leg instantly. Compound fracture of the leg, which means the bone comes out of the skin. Well, you're in Venezuela in poverty. You don't call 911, and you don't go to the emergency room. So they did what they normally do, and they did nothing. Now imagine a 5-year-old in that kind of pain. About a year or so later, we don't quite have the story. It got so bad, they had to operate on it somewhere, in some medieval clinic, I'm sure. The result looked like 2 of us took some butter knives and gave it a go, and it was grotesque. So what he was left with was a foot that was turned 90 degrees all the time, every time. And he would walk along just as happy as he could be, just like this. Now let me ask you, Ramon had a choice. He could decide the glass is half full, the glass is half empty. All the cards are stacked against him. But what you're going to learn is the kid is amazing. Life was great for him. Every day was an adventure. The happiest kid you would ever want to meet. Grab your heart, pull it right out. Everybody, he does that too, because he loves life and he chooses to have an attitude to be positive. Well, it paid off one day for him because a priest, a Venezuelan priest, comes into his village and he sees Ramon. He sees Ramon. Now that priest had a decision to make himself. He could do what many people would do. It's tough to be you, kid. Good luck. Tough to be you. Or he could get him some help. Fortunately, he chose the latter. And he did the only thing that he knew he could do. And he called the United States of America. And he called the Shriners. And he said, we need help. Can you help this boy? And the Shriners did what they do best. They said, absolutely. Absolutely. Get him over here. We will take care of him. And I will tell you, if there are any Shriners in this audience, God bless you. Because absolutely. If you've never been to the Shriners Hospital in Greenville, go. Because it's a positive experience, it's not a negative one. And they do amazing things for kids all around the world, including our country here. Amazing. So the Shriners say, get him over. We'll fix him right up. So the priest, somehow or another, gets him on a jet plane. Ramon's never seen a jet plane, let alone be on one. He gets on this jet plane by himself. By himself. And you know how the checked baggage fee is the extra $25 they nail you with the extra bags? Not a problem for Ramon. He didn't have any bags. He came here with nothing but the clothes on his body. Nothing. He gets to Atlanta. Can you imagine? Can you imagine what he sees in Atlanta? You know, the world of wonder. They drive him up to Clemson to meet my family. He comes out of the car and he's hobbling, big smile on his face. He's hobbling along. Gives myself, my wife, my 2 kids the biggest hugs you'd ever see. You take him to the grocery store. Can you imagine what he sees at the grocery store? It's a world of wonder. He comes into our house, turns on the lights, and they work. Water, hot, cold, warm, if you want it. What a deal. One day I'm working out in my living room. He's sitting there on the sofa watching me. And I'm working out, and he's looking at me, mocking me with a smile on his face, doing that thing. And I have my little iPod on, my earbuds. I take them off just to give him a hard time, and I put them to his ears. And it's like he got shocked. He couldn't believe it. And I realized he's never heard music come through little chords like that before. Then he wanted to give it back. But that's a whole other story. So we have to take him to Shriners. The goal is, Ramon's going to Shriners. They're going to put rods in his leg, straighten his leg out. It's good to go back home. He goes to Shriners. where real doctors, seriously real doctors, evaluate him for probably the first time in his life. And they say the rods won't work. He's got a bone disease. That the bones will not adhere to the rods in his leg. Well, we said, well, what's the answer? And they said, we got to amputate it. Just gets worse. So now it's on us as a family to decide how to tell Ramon what you thought you were coming here for isn't going to happen.